Hello and welcome to another edition of Issues with JIDE. Here we talk about actions and inactions of those who shape our political and national landscape and how these impact us positively or otherwise. I'm Ibrahim Shita. Today on the show, federal government gives Supreme Court 13 grounds to block Nnamdi Kanu's release. Also, federal government suspends plan to remove fuel subsidy, cites wrong timing. And later on the show, President Buhari tells Obi and Atiku, "You lost due to overconfidence, bad tactics." In the course of the program, we'll take your questions, but first, subscribe to our YouTube channel and drop your questions in the comment section. I have joining me via Zoom, all the way from the East, is the maestro himself, Babajide Kolade-Otitoju. It's good to see you again, BKO, this evening.
Good evening, and I have to say it was a thing of joy for me to be on the inaugural flight to Ebonyi State, the new airport, was beautiful airport in Nigeria. Privileged to see it, and I was among the first to fly into that beautiful airport, the first airport in Nigeria.
Amazing.
With an all concrete runway and the most beautiful terminal building in the country currently. So good things are happening in our country, and good things are not limited to a part of our country. I can say without a shadow of a doubt that the outgoing governor of Ebonyi State, Dave Mai, has done very well.
Fantastic stuff.
Happy that I saw this for myself. I wasn't told the story. I saw this. I moved around, went to the Federal University of Health Sciences, named after the governor, the most beautiful modern buildings that I've seen a Nigerian tertiary, public tertiary institution have, is what I've seen in Ebonyi State. So it's a good thing when we travel occasionally, this because it enables us to see things that sitting down in Lagos did not see.
Yeah, so that differentiates you from armchair pundits or armchair analysts. You know, that's something that differentiates you from that. And so let's get right into
a lot of those analysts are not journalists. They are just on-air personalities, and that's why they are limited in terms of the knowledge of our country, and very narrow in terms of the analysis of the problems facing our country. They don't go anywhere. They just sit in their studios.
So, all right, then. Let's get into the issue for today. The federal government filed non-additional grounds of appeal to the four it earlier filed in a hurry to block the release of the IPOB leader, Nnamdi Kanu, from custody. Recall that Southeast leaders had raised the alarm over an outbreak of tuberculosis in the facility housing the IPOB leader. Talk to us about the implication of these fresh grounds of appeal.
I think that everything is being done to ensure that Kanu does not get released during the lifetime of this administration. Efforts have been made in the past to take a political view of this matter, this case, and see if the matter can be resolved amicably through further negotiations, through engagement by both parties. We have seen worse cases decided on the round table. I've talked about brothers who were at war for 60 years, brothers who deployed some of the worst weapons against one another for decades. They still had to negotiate at the end of the day. A win-win strategy is not usually the best. A win-win strategy. So sometimes you have to look inwards and ask yourself if it is not better to make peace We saw how, in the heat of the Niger Delta Avengers crisis, we thought that force was the best way to approach the situation. But in the end, when we saw that Nigeria was losing revenue, they reduced us to less than 400,000 barrels per day in terms of production, and they were sabotaging even our export terminals. Our major export terminals were being sabotaged, and yet we could not arrest them or lay our hands on them. The communities that oil pipelines crisscross them, some of them lying on the surface of the earth. Those are not places where you drop bombs anyhow. We had to engage with them. People like the current vice president was involved. Atiku was involved. We engaged them, and they stopped sabotaging Nigeria economically. And oil production went up to even close to 2 million barrels a day. So for me, sometimes you need to negotiate. And I want to believe that even in this matter, it is still possible. But what we have seen is the Ministry of Justice coming up with grounds upon which it wants the the Supreme Court to listen to its appeal. Remember that it was the Court of Appeal that set Kanu free. And in setting Kanu free, the Court of Appeal looked at the manner in which he was brought into our country from Kenya. And in the wisdom of the Court of Appeal, the manner of his extradition to our country contravened all known global best practices, contravened international conventions. And for this reason, the court decided to quash the charges and set him free. But now in challenging this at the Supreme Court, where the federal government had pleaded that the implementation of that judgment, that order of the appeal court should be suspended, government pushed hard that the appeal court erred in law by simply looking at the manner in which Nnamdi Kanu was brought into the country and not looking at the gravity of the offense that he committed. So everything that I've seen that they are talking about here are all hinged on the fact that the appeal court looked at the procedure by which he was brought into the country rather than the offense that the Federal Ministry of Justice accused him of committing, which is inciting people in the Southeast and neighboring state to secession, campaigning for secession of the Southeast and neighboring communities. So they are saying that some of the laws cited, some of the conventions cited by the appeal court were not consistent with Nigerian laws, and that it should have used our own laws to decide that matter. It said the court misdirected itself when it relied on the manner of Kanu's extradition in robbing the trial court of its jurisprudence, saying it is inconsistent with judicial precedent of the Supreme Court. It also accused it of relying on international legal instruments and cases decided from foreign jurisdictions in freeing Kanu. My own argument is that if Nigeria willingly, without a gun to its neck, subscribed to international conventions, then we are obligated to obey those international conventions. Today it is Nnamdi Kanu, tomorrow it could be someone else. So to hear that it was wrong to cite international law and all that is something that I find strange. I don't think there's anything wrong in citing international law because Nigeria is part of the global uh, community. And I do not even think also that the federal government was right when it claimed that it did not get fair hearing because they did not prove that indeed they were denied fair hearing. All that this pushback is about is the argument that they did not, that the court of law did not look at the gravity of the offense it committed, but that it was much more concerned about the manner in which he was brought into the country. So this is where we are on this matter. I know that this matter will, in the final analysis, be decided outside the courts because I know that the president-elect said he would do his best to negotiate with warring parties in the Southeast. We want peace in the Southeast. The most enterprising Nigerians talking about business are our people from the Southeast. We want a country that is indivisible, that is united, where everyone is pulling the same direction to achieve real progress. And we want the tension in our country to come down. Whatever needs to be done has to be done.
Absolutely, Biko. Let me take one or two comments. Let me start from Oluchukwu Kletter saying, evening, the maestro. I'm glad to hear that you were in Ebonyi. I'm from Ebonyi State. I think Umahi has done tremendously well in terms of infrastructure. Fabian Akaise says that releasing Mazi Nnamdi Kanu would not guarantee peace in the region, as majority of Igbos residing in the east are living in fear because of the activities of IPOB. They have to lie to be pro-Biafra to remain alive. And they said there should be a referendum in the southeast where the results will be anonymous. Igbos should be asked whether they want Nnamdi Kanu to be released. You will be shocked by the answer. Igbos despise him. Olatunji Atanda says, I will always differ with BKO on Nnamdi Kanu's issue. NG Top 10 says, BKO, your views about he disagrees with your views. He said that Nnamdi Kanu is the leader of IPOB and not Igbos. Just a very quick reaction to some of those comments.
No, I'm not saying that he's the leader of the Igbos. I'm not saying that. All I'm interested in is let us have peace. And I've seen so many cases in my life to know that not all matters are necessarily decided by the courts. Sometimes you go to court and you still come back and make peace. Even over the Abacha loops, we went to court. Obasanjo had to still negotiate with the Abacha family, gave them about 2 billion so that we can have access to some of the money that that talented thief stole. So sometimes, and they have to withdraw the cases in court because they were wasting time and we needed the money. So it's not in all cases that the courts guarantee you the end product, the result, what you really want. I am not an apostle of violence. I oppose any attempt to cause violence in our country. But I also know that innocent people are losing their lives in the Southeast. Those who have nothing to do with the agitation for a state of their own. A lot of innocent people are losing their lives and businesses are being affected. Right. Government can do better. This is my view. I'll be happy if the incoming government finds a way to solve this problem. And if Kanu will agree to renounce his armed struggle against the Nigerian state, if we agree to stop his secession activities, I'll be very happy if the thing is resolved amicably, because I know it's possible.
Well, it remains to be seen if it would renounce it, because the IPOB thing, the IPOB ideology has been so ingrained in some, in the psyche of some of, those who are in support of, the secession of the Igbo people from Nigeria. But then,
a lot of those people, we are talking about, they don't even live in Nigeria. Let's not kid ourselves. How many people on the streets of our states in the southeast will say that they want to get out of Nigeria? How many people? A lot of people causing the trouble, sending money home for people to resort to violence. They are not based here. They live in a world of their own, kind of utopia. And even getting out of a country, secession is no guarantee for progress where you are. How much progress have we seen in South Sudan? So it's no guarantee for success. All I'm interested in is what the president-elect said during his campaigns. Are we encouraging to implement it? He said he would negotiate with the intention of finding peace in the Southeast. I will very much encourage him to do that. Whatever I can do to restore peace to the Southeast, I will encourage him.
Right. Let's change tact by looking at the issue of the federal government's, position on fuel subsidy. Following the news making the rounds that the federal government has suspended the planned removal of fuel subsidy, Nigeria's finance minister Zainab Ahmed has denied the report, saying the government has rather expanded the subsidy removal committee to include teams from the incoming administration and the state governors. What do you make of this story?
Well, he's saying the same thing. They don't like it when people appear to misunderstand what they are saying. Journalists are practicing interpretative journalism a lot more today than when I was a young reporter. You said that you are expanding the team. You said that the incoming administration will be involved in determining when it will take off. Whereas earlier on, you said it was going to take off on June 1. Now, if you are saying that that you are bringing in the incoming administration and getting the incoming administration to decide by the time when your own administration has gone, to decide when this thing can take off, is that not postponement? Of course it is postponement, because you can no longer take off on June 1 that you said earlier. So I don't know what she's denying. She is just denying the obvious. They have made up their minds now that, look, it is better for this administration to come in, determine when it is best for it to remove subsidy. No one is saying they will never remove subsidy. But this story is saying clearly that removal will not happen imminently. It will happen much later. So that is what people are reporting, and that is accurate. Because in saying that you will let the new administration come in and be part of deciding when this thing will take off, you have clearly told us that it will not take off at the time that you earlier planned that it will take off. So she should spare us all these semantics and the rest. It is clear to us that the takeoff will no longer be on June 1. And one thing is clear, the new administration will be involved in deciding when it will take off, rather than the Buhari administration determining for it. So those who reported that it had been postponed, they were very correct. And don't forget that the National Economic Council also made that suggestion. Because it won't be right for this administration, the incoming administration, to walk into a climate of hatred, of anger, when Nigerians realize that one day into the administration, subsidy is done with the attendant pains that it will inflict, with so much pains, then inflicted as a result of that on Nigerians. So the story as reported by Nigerian journalists is accurate. There's nothing for the minister to deny. In fact, in denying, she further gave credence to the story. But subsidy is something that we have to take a second look at. In the last 16 years, we have spent about $30 billion on subsidy. There comes a time when a country tells itself, can we continue? Because one of the reasons for endless borrowing by our country is because of revenue shortfall. And when you are spending 400 billion naira on subsidy every month, there's no way you will not have revenue shortfall. Because if that money were to be put somewhere else, of course, the effect will be visible. We are spending 400 billion every day now. I said every month. It's actually every day. Because when fuel prices went up to in the international market, when it went up to 300, when the landing cost came to 315 naira per liter, government was subsidizing by up to 200 naira. There's a difference of 200 naira there. So by the time you calculate all that, you are looking at about 401 billion naira daily. So if we are to be spending about 6 trillion naira on subsidy in a year, that is massive. That is really, really massive. 1.24 trillion naira monthly on subsidy. It's just not sustainable. Yeah, this whole subsidy thing began in the 70s, and we made a law to guide it. We wanted to, because oil prices were rising as a result of the Israeli Arab war, and government thought that it had to subsidize. At that time, about 72% of the entire cost of fuel was actually being subsidized. But today, government is subsidizing about 42%, at least when we look at since 2011, about 42%. So Nigerians have actually been taking in the cost of subsidy much higher than during the Obasanjo era, because it was Obasanjo that came up with the price control law and came up with those subsidies. There was literally subsidizing as a result of the oil boom that we were enjoying at that time. We were subsidizing healthcare, we were subsidizing water supply, we were subsidizing air travel. In fact, the Nigerian Airways subsidized its tickets. We were subsidizing even essential commodities like sugar, rice, and all of those essential commodities of that time. We were literally subsidizing everything. But today, it is inevitable that we have to do something about subsidy, not just of not just of fuel, but even
Right.
electricity.
Right. Because of our
So
time.
that is a decision that we have to take. We have to take this decision at some point in our lives. It is, we just can't continue.
Absolutely.
Just can't continue.
Let me quickly take one or two comments and then
And
we'll go to
and
the. You wanted to say something?
yes, I also think that the incoming administration must find out by thoroughly investigating the exact daily consumption of fuel in our country, because I believe that the consumption level has been grossly over bloated, so that people can steal money tremendously through the subsidy regime. I do not believe that we consume up to 66 million liters a day. And I remember even the customs, the CG saying, oh, if you say it's 66 million per day, those who filled their tanks yesterday, are you saying that the next day they will still fill their tanks? Those who receive supply, petrol sellers who receive supply the day before, they fill their underground tanks. Are they still obligated to fill the tank the next day? Is it practicable? So there's a lot of fraud going on.
Absolutely.
So if we must
That
continue
is
this even by a single day, we have to make sure that we are paying for the exact level of consumption by Nigerians.
that's really thoughtful. Deji Akimbodi says, I think we should build refineries like Dangote and make oil production cheaper before removing subsidies and causing chaos. Fabian Akeze says, Ashiwaju must ensure that the country has at least 3 refineries working functionally that can meet the demands of the nation, or else Nigerians should prepare for major poverty and hunger. Namani Lota says Warri, Kaduna, and Port Harcourt refineries must work before subsidy removal, and also maybe Dangote can, come on stream before they remove it. Well, because of our time, Ikeo, let's hurry to the last topic. President Muhammad Buhari, in describing the opposition party's defeat, rather, at presidential polls, said they were basking in the euphoria of false hope, and that a combination of overconfidence, complacency, and bad tactical moves made them lose, plain and clear. And this has even created more problems in their camp. Do you agree with Mr. President, Bikeo?
I think, yes, that he was correct to an extent. I think they thought that whatever happened, they were going to win. At a point, some of my friends were asking me that, why is it that Atiku is not campaigning frenetically the way Tinubu was campaigning? None of those candidates, none of them traveled across our country as much as Tinubu did. Tinubu out-traveled and out-consulted all of those candidates, even in preparing for the primaries of his party. He traveled around the country much more than anybody. He expended so much energy on the campaigns more than those candidates. Because of the opinion polls that gave the impression that Obi was going to win. In fact, imagine an opinion poll even stressed that Obi would defeat Kwankwaso in Kano. Some of those opinion polls were that ridiculous. And for that reason, maybe they thought that by going it alone, they could win. I think one of the biggest mistakes was for Atiku and Kwankwaso not to come together. I've seen where, at the level of power sharing and all, opposition parties desperate to kick a government out of power will find a way to work together. These ones were just too selfish, were too self-serving to think of working together. And I don't know how else you can defeat an incumbent government with the array of governors at their disposal if you cannot find a way to work together. If Obi and Atiku had worked together, for example, that would have delivered to them about 14 million votes. And if they score 14 million votes, how is Tinubu going to defeat them? If Atiku and even Kwankwaso had come together, they probably would have won the election, because it would then mean that more people in the north will vote for the Kwankwaso ticket. And with the extra 1 million coming from Kano, definitely that Atiku and Kwankwaso and Obi will probably have won the election, because some of those who will have voted, who voted for some of the Northerners who voted for Kwankwaso would have given their votes to a combined Peter Obi Kwankwaso ticket. But despite initially having talks, they refused to take it beyond that point, because Kwankwaso felt that, look, why should I be running mate to Peter Obi? He didn't want to be running mate to Peter Obi, so he preferred to stand alone and then win only one state, you know? But he did well in some states. You can imagine Obi inheriting all those votes from Jigawa and other northwest states where Kwankwaso was able to get some votes. And even Taraba, in Taraba he got some votes because his candidate actually did very, very well in the governorship election. So I can see that if they had worked the wrong tactics, maybe that was what he meant, because if they had come together, there's no way they would not have defeated Tinubu. The only reason Tinubu won this election is because people took away Atiku's votes. You can imagine if Atiku and Peter Obi were together, it would have been an easy win for them. So deceiving themselves that, it was Tinubu didn't win and all that. I'm just looking at them. No one is saying the election was perfect. No one is saying the election was not manipulated. You know, politicians will always manipulate elections. But what the law says is that there must be substantial compliance with the Electoral Act. You know, so once there is substantial compliance with the Electoral Act, you are not going to succeed at the level of litigation. This is the way our law is. It has nothing to do with bias. In future, opposition parties must brush aside their selfishness, their self-centeredness, and should be able to work together. We've seen it happen in other countries. People must be ready to share power. So by not coming together, they gave the APC an opportunity of escape. Because at the end of the day, look at the way the National Assembly elections went. For the first time in the history of our country, a ruling party does not have majority in the House of Reps. That is the first time. And that is another evidence that that election of February 25 was an election like no other. Was an election like no other. It was an election where Nigerians spoke. The fact that it did not go according to the desires of some people does not mean that the election was bad or the worst in our history. Some of the people saying the worst in our history, how many elections have they seen? Did they see the 1983 election? How old were they even in 1999? So an election in which 12 governors could not deliver their states. An election in which 7 governors wanted to go into the Senate and they failed. You are still describing it as the worst in our history. I mean, that is the height of dishonesty. The facts show clearly that that election, the February 25 election, was, compared to previous elections, was way better, because the results were simply not written as we have had in previous years. And the ruling party lost all the big states. Kano, Kaduna, Katsina. They lost all the big states, Lagos. It
Right.
has never happened. And I
Yeah.
will continue to say it because this is the truth. It is the truth. So next time, they should work together.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let me quickly take
Working
some of these
together, they
comments.
will have
Nelson Adefe says it's Mr.
a
President's opinion, and his
10
opinion should
million
not
votes.
be.
14 million votes.
Right, okay, so he's saying that it's Mr. President's opinion, and his opinion should not be attacked. It was just the way he sees it, either it meets up or not. Folashade Olarinoye says PMB is very right because you don't go to war in a divided house. Tinubu deserves to win. He worked for it. He refused to be distracted. Evans says JIDE looks like it disappeared. I don't know why. Fabian Akese says Kwakwanso reached out to Peter Obi, but Dunyo Okukwe and Pat Utomi elevated Peter Obi more than his actual status, and he lost. Peter Obi is not ready to govern Nigeria. His ideas are repetitive. Lanley Peter says, when it comes to political analysis in our country, I give it to you, Uncle Jide. I like I always tell you that you are a history library on two legs. Okay, so that's so many comments. There's actually one I would like to take before we call it a wrap. Yeah, Tractor says, Friday says, I still wonder till today, or to this day, how Labour Party thought they won this election, and he puts a thinking smiley there. So let that be a react to that, and then we call it a wrap.
Oh, I don't know. I honestly don't know those who are telling Peter Obi that he won the election. He didn't win this election. I was when I was touring the Federal University of Health Sciences. Somebody came to me and said, "Did they swear that Tinubu won the election?" I said, "Yes. You and I, let us go to Okija. If I get to Okija, if I don't swear that he won the election, call me a bastard. Okija is here in the southeast. I'm ready to go with you." I said, "But you two must be ready to swear that Obi won the election." He just burst into laughter and dragged uh, the his daughter who was with him. Because I have that conviction. The way the election went, I'm convinced that yes, there were manipulations in some places. But what are we talking about? 176,000 polling units. You can't expect that things will be perfect in all of them. But this election taught many people a lesson. Next, Mr. President said that too, that things are changing. You must show respect to the voter because the voters punish governors. In the past, Ikweazu and others will have simply written results, but they lost. They are governors of their states, but they couldn't get into the National Assembly. Yet that is the election that we are ridiculing all over the place because for some of us, the person we wanted to see win did not win. We have to go back, ask ourselves what happened. There is nothing bad in losing an election. Abraham Lincoln lost election several times, but invariably he became the 15th US president. Buhari lost election 3 times because all his focus was on his not. By the time he joined Tinubu and others, he was able to win. He couldn't have won on his own. That is a fact. He won because other people agreed to work with him. Obi and Atiku lost an opportunity to defeat the APC. They lost that opportunity, and it's a shame that they couldn't come together. The same thing with the NNPP man. If I meet him today, I'm going to tell him that you should have worked with Peter Obi. Because if they have come together, I'm sure it will have been difficult to defeat them. I'm sure it will have been difficult to defeat them. There were people who voted for APC, who would have voted for Kwankwaso, knowing that he had a strong candidate from the south.
Right.
But this is not how politicians think. They are extremely selfish.
Absolutely.
So to even step down is a problem for them.
All right. Okay. Let's go home. Let me read his last comment. Falasha Deolaroye says, JIDE is a good journalist who speaks the truth. Some people align with him only when he speaks what they want to hear, and when it comes to Obi, you hate him. It's not fair on him, or they're not being fair to you. Anyway, that's our show for today's edition of Issues with JIDE. Special thanks to you, Babajide Kolade-Otitoju, for those insightful analyses, as always, all the way from Ebonyi State.
Thank you so much. Hopefully I'll be back in Lagos tomorrow. Thank you to our viewers. God bless you as you listen to us. Together we'll deliver a Nigeria that everyone will be happy to live in. Nigeria will be great in our time.
Right. And thanks to you to our audience for joining us on every edition. You can see the program again anytime by subscribing to our YouTube channel, TVC News Nigeria. Click on the subscribe button to get the latest information. You can also follow us on our social media platforms at TVC News NG. I'm at Ibrahim, TVC News. On behalf of the rest of the team, I'm Ibrahim Shita. See you again next edition. Bye for now.